Albinism can be much misunderstood on the continent, and people with the condition are under daily threat to life and limb.
Growing and selling vegetables in Plateau State, local farmers and officials look for ways to maximize efficiencies and profits.
And a contemporary Nigerian artist portrays traditional beliefs and culture through his work at a popular exhibition in Lagos. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello, I'm Cynthia Are at Channels Television here in Lagos. Stay with us in the next half hour for stories from Nigeria and the world.
Well, and I'm Vincent McCory, Voice of America, coming to you from our global headquarters in Washington.
The Nigeria Labour Congress defied a court ban last week to launch a general strike in protest of a planned increase in fuel prices. The government hopes lifting costly fuel subsidies, causing petrol prices to rise up by 2/3, will help alleviate the worst crisis in decades in Africa's biggest economy. I'm joined for more now by the CEO of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Mr. Alaoye Jayeola. Mr. Alaoye Jayeola, thank you very much for joining us on Africa 54.
Thank you.
How do you see this move made by the government?
I believe it's a step in the right direction. It's the first step out of many other things to be done. You see, our case was like someone who didn't have money at all, who is giving out the little that he has without even paying attention to his original responsibilities. So it's a step in the right direction, and we hope that other things that will liberalize the entire petroleum sector, alongside other policies, will be taken on by the government.
Now, we've seen some demonstrations against that move by the government, and we've also heard various arguments. But one of the questions is, was this the right time to make that move?
I would say that it's a step we're taking rather late in the day, but some of us will say it's rather late than never. Look, we don't have money, and let's not kid ourselves. And if your revenue is short and you have expenses that you can cut down, what do? You look at what you can do away with. And subsidy was something we didn't need to be doing as a nation. I mean, and again, we're not against subsidy, but you just decide what are you subsidizing, consumption or production. So there's no better time than now. The realities of today had compelled us to cut this up, but we should have done this longer than now. So what we at the NESD will really ask for is that there are other policies that must work alongside this to make it effective. That is what government should be doing.
Now, part of the factors that some people argue were not necessarily taken into consideration is, for instance, those who earn low income, how they're supposed to cope with this increase, seeing as, you know, the prices of literally everything in the market has gone up by 2/3, to say the least. So how does the everyday man cope with this step that was taken, despite the fact that it was a crucial one, like you say?
Again, let's not deceive ourselves. Apart from those of us in Lagos or probably Abuja, the buck over 100 million Nigerians are not buying this price at the so-called 87 naira. So they're already affected. And secondly, if you remove subsidy, then you can direct our resources to very critical things. Look, it's good to take care of people in the social areas in terms of health and education. And the government has said that they have other palliative measures that need to be taken. The truth of the matter is that this money was going to the wrong source. It wasn't going to the people. And we had tons and tons of people that are staying unpaid. I mean, at a point in time in this country, 27 states were not being paid. The workers were not being paid. And the question some of us will ask are, where was the NLC when all these things were happening? When people were buying fuel at 300, 200, 350, 200 naira, where was the NLC? So, you see, for me, the reality is that the times are hard. A number of us are going to suffer. But what we urge government to do is that let's do the palliatives. One hope that the lack of rain, that is, the train wind done in Lagos is done. We put our water works, our waterways to work very, very quickly. What we need is that we need mass movement of people. It's not fuel that will solve it. I mean, it's not the number of cars we see on our road in Lagos every day that will solve it. We need to see how do we move our people. And in a budget, we hear a number of things being taught about the railway lines. So let's give all this up to ensure that they're done. Let's change the laws around the inland waterways. Let's change the laws that inhibits private sector from investing in rails and all those other infrastructure. When these are done, then the downtrodden people can rejoice. But this wasn't helping any downtrodden person before now. And it's not going to help if we continue this subsidy matter.
Well, Mr. Aloy Jayola, thank you so much for joining us on Africa 54. We sincerely appreciate your time and your contribution.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Well, from petroleum to the internet now. Some 9 billion devices are connected to the web today, but more than half the world still is not online. Experts say getting connected is critical to improving lives. Elizabeth Lee reports from Los Angeles, where experts met to discuss the issue.
More people in the developing world are getting smartphones, and this technology is making a difference, not just in people's lives, but in making government more efficient, says Kenyan official Joe Machuro.
You know, we have got huge fights in terms of corruption, transparency, openness, and technology is really the vehicle we're using to ensure that, you know, whatever transactions are taking place, you can see them, they're digital.
But there are still parts of the world that are not connected.
Obviously, we look at Africa, we look at Southeast Asia, and there are large swaths, obviously, of the population that are not connected.
Once people start using smartphones, they talk less and use more data, making high-speed service a necessity, says Dennis O'Brien of the mobile phone company Digicel. But building the infrastructure is a challenge.
Everybody's built the easy bit. In other words, they've done the towns and the cities. But going into rural communities, they haven't done it because the business case is very thin.
Experts say the private and public sectors need to come together to bring the internet to remote and developing regions and drive economic growth.
Any country that wants to create investment and be a location for investment to create employment, the first thing you need is broadband.
Yet to those who see technology as solving everything, Professor Kentaro Toyama notes America's social problems did not end when digital innovation began decades ago.
During that same span of time, this country has experienced rising inequality, the median income has declined.
So a smartphone alone won't help pull people out of poverty, adds Toyama.
And if they do have a mobile phone, are people, for example, who are physical laborers on farms, where it doesn't make too much of a difference if you can have access to the latest agronomic research paper as a way to improve your farming.
But O'Brien says the opposite is true.
Once you get broadband, you can educate people, you can create jobs for people, and people from an agricultural point of view become much more efficient.
The fact that maybe some of the people in the West haven't come out of poverty because they have not used their devices well is not the same for Africa.
Cisco's Hilton Romansky says it will take cooperation to maximize technology's benefits.
It's going to take, again, all the parties coming together to drive the right cultural shift and the right education into these countries.
The experts agree positive change can happen if education on technology is combined with the right policies in place. Elizabeth Lee for VOA News, Los Angeles.
Where information spreads, ignorance dissipates. In Tanzania, superstition means that people with albinism are under constant threat. Witch doctors are after their body parts to be used as charms. Last year, 5 children who lost body parts in such attacks were brought to the United States, where they received prosthetic limbs. Reporter Willie Lowry has more.
12-year-old Magulu and 6-year-old Baraka love to play games together.
Soccer, cards.
The Tanzanian children were born with albinism, a congenital disorder characterized by a lack of pigment in their skin. In some parts of Tanzania, people with albinism are thought to hold mystical powers. As a result, they are sometimes attacked and even killed for their body parts. When Magulu was 9 years old, men with machetes cut off his left arm.
He got attacked when he came from the school. He was in the field taking care of cows after school.
Last summer, the nonprofit group Under the Same Sun teamed up with the Global Medical Relief Fund to bring Magulu, Baraka, and 3 other children to the United States, where they received prosthetic limbs.
I was happy to get an arm. It helps me wash my clothes and put things away, and it helps me play games like this.
Ruela says she's noticed a big difference in the children since their trip to the U.S.
We are very proud of them because they were out of the school, I can say that almost 4.5 months. But when they went back to school, they were in class like 3 weeks. But Mwigulu did the best. He was among of the 10 best. The same applies for Baraka.
The children are thriving, but the threat against people with albinism remains very real in Tanzania.
We have a great problem of negativity towards people with albinism amongst the society in Tanzania. Most of them do not believe that we are human beings. So advocacy is really, really required to be done all throughout Tanzania.
Under the Same Sun is trying to educate Tanzanians about people with albinism so other children don't have to endure the pain and suffering Mwigulu and Baraka went through. They're also looking for sponsors to help other children with albinism in need of prosthetics. Willie Lowry for VOA News in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, Africa 54's Peter Clotty goes on one-on-one with the founder of Ghana's PPP and a potential contender for Ghana's presidency. Stay with us.